now listening to the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr. Welcoming you to another lap of the Extra Mile for today, March 7th, 2024. And unfortunately, it was the worst case scenario for Formula One. NASCAR had a historic weekend, and IndyCar, well, they're just ready for their season to get started. And to help me talk about all of that, of course, my co-host, Christopher Lehman. I'm doing great, and if you are listening live, make sure to get your comments out into the chat. We'll read those as we go on. As I said, Formula One had about the worst case scenario where they had a lackluster race, and the off-the-track headlines are dominating the conversation going into this week. Meanwhile, a DC native and a previous guest of the Extra Mile got a breakthrough win, and IndyCar, man, they probably had the worst off-season of any motorsport. We're going to get into all of that, as Michael Ward is joining us as well, just came into the Zoom. But before we get all of that, we have a little announcement to make. If you remember, I kind of hinted that we would have a new voice joining us. And now she is here, the host of IE Sports Radio Show of the Land. Miss Jen B is now with us here on the Extra Mile. Jen, welcome in.
Thank you, Daryl. Thanks for having me.
Well, Jen will be with us on a semi-annual or annual basis, depending on how she wants to play it, to talk a lot of motorsports with us. Jen, talk a little bit. I know you're a huge NASCAR fan. Talk a little bit about your fandom.
I got started watching NASCAR in around 98. I was dating a guy that was real big into racing, and I started watching, and I got hooked on Jeff Gordon. So I followed the sport for years until he retired. And then I got a little bored with it, so I got away from it. But I've been getting back into it the last few months, and Larry B got me watching that. Now I can't remember the name of it, that 24-hour race.
The 24 Hours of Daytona, yeah, I may mention that I was watching that, so Larry just kind of grabs everybody to watch it.
Yes. So I watched quite a bit of that, and I've been trying to catch some of the races so far this season. It's hard. I have so many teams that I have to stay up with for my show, so it's hard to find time to watch everything. But I did catch most of Daytona and the tail end of Atlanta last week. Okay. So, getting there.
Hey, that's good. So we'll help you along as much as we can with all the conversations. Jen will be with us as a semi-annual guest, depending on her availability. So we are now with Michael Ward back in. We got to force him again, boys.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
Yep.
Michael's still muted.
Sorry.
So
hello,
we'll
everyone.
So Michael is now with us. We'll go ahead and start with the NASCAR conversation. We'll start with what happened in Las Vegas. And it was exciting here for the Extra Mile for the truck race, as Raja Caruth, previous guest of the Extra Mile and Washington, D.C. native, picked up career win number 1 in the truck race on Friday. And boys, I was kind of running around doing a bunch of stuff on Friday night, but when I saw that Raja picked up that win, I kind of did a little dance in the room because it's awesome. I got to meet him virtually in 2020, ironically doing a project for school during the pandemic. So we got to have him on the show as well, and to see him pick up the win, it was really good for all the DC metro area race fans that we don't get to see a lot of people like us pick up the win.
Yeah, we don't. And it's great to see that he got a win, and I think he'll actually keep being in the running for wins. And I think I remember when he won, I actually went on the stream and congratulated him another time. And then he picked up his trophy during the pace spot, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I learned that you can drive ahead of the field, park your truck, run to the bathroom real quick, run back to your truck, and you can still get your place back.
So Raja dominated that race. He led 38 laps, second highest to Ty Majeski's 40, qualified on the pole, won the race. Tyler Ankrum, Corey Heim, Taylor Gray, Christopher Bell, the top five in that one. And Raja, now 21 years old, is going to the playoffs. This was a big deal for NASCAR diversity to have Raja pick up the win. And Jen, I'll bring you in because it's Women's Histories Month. We got a bunch of women now driving in a bunch of motorsports, NASCAR included. It's got to feel good to see, and I'll put it like this, the non-traditional race car drivers pick up the win.
Yes, definitely. I remember when Danica Patrick started in NASCAR, and it was such a big deal. And it's so great to see women getting more into professional sports in all areas, and especially racing because it's been so male dominated.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that I know Tony Brindinger is driving in ARCA and also in trucks as well. I know Jennifer Jo Cobb has come back. There's Haley Deegan in the Xfinity Series. She had a top 15 at Las Vegas, so she's starting to come together. So the diversity angle of this, NASCAR trying to open this box up to more drivers is a lot of fun. But of course, we also have the idiots that came out. Not going to get into it other than, look, if it's that big of a deal that NASCAR celebrates one of their drivers picking up a win, and he's the third of his kind to do it, which is worth calling out, you need to find a hobby. You need to find something else to do because we're not fighting with you at this point. So we'll move on to...
Well, I would just say to kind of also pop in on that, the same people, it's always the same people that make us think about any type of change, right?
Mm-hmm.
When Toyota came into NASCAR, the world was ending. Danica coming into NASCAR, the world was ending. There's a very specific group of fans that just cannot handle any type of change whatsoever, whether it's good. Actually, I would just say good because they're fine with the bad change because bad change is no change. But I mean, like we're talking about potential electrification of NASCAR, and who were the ones screaming the loudest about it? The same people who scream the loudest about the other things that I just mentioned. So it's just this culture problem that NASCAR has where we just want to be back in the days of the good old boys, and that's it.
It's going to take some getting fixed. It's going to take some fixing, but who knows how long it's going to take. But, the best way that these non-traditional drivers can make more fans, obviously, is to win. And if it makes people mad, so be it. So, switching on to Sunday, another Drive for Diversity graduate, Kyle Larson, picks up the win, led 181 laps at Las Vegas. That is just a track that agrees with Mr. Larson and Hendrick Motorsports, and they proved it. Jen, I don't know if you saw any of this race, but it was a great battle at the end between Larson and Reddick, and I think the good thing for NASCAR is they've had 3 races so far and 3 great finishes to start the year.
I did see the tail end. I was listening to it prior to that, and then I was able to turn it on right towards the end, so I did see the finish. And they've been great finishes all 3 races so far. So hopefully that will continue, and maybe we can actually get through 10 or 15 laps without a caution one of these races.
I think that is one thing I kind of agree with. Cautions have been up this year.
Yeah.
I mean, Daytona is Daytona. Atlanta, another super speedway race, but even then we had some self spins there, just some guys making some big moves. And the main culprit of the cautions at Las Vegas seemed to be tires. We saw Christopher Bell cut a tire early. Chris Buescher, they didn't get the lug nut on, so they ended up going in the wall. And then, of course, Bubba. Guys, I'm going to have to get in shape and go to Charlotte and try out for a pit crew. Because what are we doing here? Bubba's day... Go ahead.
I was going to say the same thing they've been doing for the last 3 years.
For those that didn't... Go ahead.
I was going to say the greatest limitation that team has is their pit crew. Bubba can win races, but he needs a pit crew that can support him and actually put him in a position. It seems like they lose positions on pit road every time they go down it.
Tyler Reddick's the same way. They had a slow stop that probably cost them the win on Sunday. And Denny, on his podcast, Actions Detrimental, had a segment on it. The pit crew is keeping them out of victory lane. And they were getting the Joe Gibbs pit crews. That wasn't working. They've got their own pit crews. It's definitely not working so far because in 3 weeks we've had 5 blunders, I think, between the 3 races, between the 2 teams in the 3 races. The biggest one was for Bubba Wallace. They stripped the nut after they had an issue with the air hose on the on the left front. And they cost him 12 laps, put him out the race completely. And you have a driver, had 2 top 5 finishes, and the pit crew just puts you completely out of the race. Now, they had some handling issues at the start of that race. The car was super tight, as usual. They were trying to get it fixed, but the handling doesn't matter if the pit crew can't do their job. That's like in the NFL with I'll say my Commanders. The quarterback can't do his job if the offensive line doesn't block. You know, you can say whatever you want about Sam Howell. That offensive line was terrible and did not put him in positions to succeed. Same thing is going on with the 20-11 pit crews. Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick both finished in the top 10 in points last year. They should be winning races, and they have pit crews that just snatch defeat from the jaws of victory every week. Anybody else want to take a stab at that?
I was gonna say I've jumped in on most of them, so I was gonna try to give somebody else a shot.
I'm not gonna lie, I was trying to find the unmute button, but they kind of remind me of another successful team in another sport that has blunders in pit road.
Hold on, can I guess?
No.
Their main color is red.
No.
And they have a prancing horse on their logo.
No.
No?
Okay, you're right.
Jen, we like to tease Michael about Ferrari F1 team's pit crew struggles, which are going to be Michael and I's pit crew struggles next year when Lewis Hamilton gets over there.
It's never good when your team screws you.
No, it's not. And it's frustrating for the fans. It's frustrating for the drivers. And then we come to some tracks that, at least for Bubba, are not that great. Phoenix, Bristol, Martinsville, they're hit or miss. And it's usually down to setup. They're hit or miss with setups at these tracks. But on the other side, Kyle Larson is back. And I know we are back to prime Hendrick when everybody is complaining that they did something to obfuscate cheating. Did you guys see the end when Kyle's kids ran a quarter of a mile to join him for the victory lane interview, and then Owen kind of pulls on the splitter, and everybody's trying to go insane that they were trying to hide something they did with the splitter, and it just made me laugh. Or not the splitter, sorry, the rear spoiler, and it just made me laugh that folks thought something was going on.
I didn't see that, no. Well, what I should say is the complaining.
There was some, but it just makes me laugh because, like, Hendrick is back on top and everyone's complaining that they're cheating.
Yeah. What's new?
Right. So, also, I have to give a shout out to Ty Gibbs. 5th place. I did not think that was a good pick by Merriam in nearest
I was going
to
to
win.
say, are we getting a public apology here?
And I guess she was right. I was wrong. Good job, baby.
Maybe she should help you from now on.
I'm going to have to take her advice for picks. Denny Hamlin finished 8th. Joey Logano, he needed a decent finish after just horrible days at Daytona and Atlanta. He picked up a 9th place finish. And Noah Gragson, talk about a team that needed a rebound. Noah Gragson had -6 points due to the penalty applied to the 10 and the 41 last week. Picks up 6th place after starting 30th. That man has needed a momentum boost for over a year, and I think he finally got it.
Yeah. He had a year to forget last year, and that's putting it as lightly as possible. So, really, anything is going to be a step in the right direction for him.
And Michael, we talked about Noah's struggles last year. To finish 6th has got to feel good for him.
Yeah, I'm sure it does feel good for him after last year's blunders, and I think last year he was just like one of the talks of the year. Like he had that one bad race at Chicago, and then he wasn't able to make things happen at I think it's still Legacy Motors that he was in.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in Legacy Motor Club.
Yeah, and he just wasn't able to make things happen there, and now he's got a new ride at Stewart Haas, and I think this year for him it's just I don't think it's gonna be trying to stand out. I think it's gonna be trying to stay consistent with him this year because last year was a blunder, so I think he's just trying to put that behind him and trying to find some better results.
Yep. Jen, I'm not sure if you're too familiar with Noah, but last year he kind of got in trouble for liking a meme he wasn't supposed to, and ended up getting suspended last year. But it was probably a blessing in disguise because every other week he was either in the wall or down the order. So he's now with Stewart Haas Racing. I don't want to say trying to rehabilitate his career. I think that's too hyperbolic, but just trying to get some footing in the Cup Series. Had a good finish last week. Now he's got an opportunity to build on that momentum going into this week in Phoenix.
That's always a good thing, building on momentum. It's hard when you're down and out to get your footing back. So that is definitely a positive.
Yeah, and momentum is a big part of all sports, especially NASCAR, because we just go week to week. We'll be going from now till, what is it? I think we don't get a break until July, August, I think, because we don't get Easter off anymore. So if you get a bad run of races, it's kind of sticks with you for a majority of the season, and it's troubling. Spring can turn into a summer to forget real quick. And we are finishing up the Western Swing this week in Phoenix. This is a good test of how the championship race could be, because this is the championship event at the end of the year. But also, guys, this is going to be the first test of the new short track package that NASCAR is bringing. They have a smaller spoiler, change some things with the splitter as well. They're hoping to get these cars where they can follow and pass more on the short tracks. They did a test in Phoenix in January. The reactions were positive from the drivers. What are you hoping to see out of the racing?
I figured she'll go back to being exciting again. Well, it was exciting, but I think it'll go back to being even more exciting because if judging by how these drivers were reacting, I think this racing will go and be a lot more fun than what it has been.
Mhm.
And hopefully there'll be a lot of fun racing, which means a lot of beating and banging, which means a lot of fun times for us, right? So hopefully this new package can deliver on that.
Yeah.
Chris,
Sorry. Yeah, I so I see a lot of promise in the racing and the finishes we've seen so far, but I don't like Phoenix.
I
That's
think that's a
just
popular opinion.
I would agree with that.
um I it's gonna have a very difficult time winning me over, to be completely honest. Um yeah, that's about all I've got to say.
Well, here is what I will say. I would not judge this package too harshly by Phoenix because I have also been watching NASCAR since at least 1998. That's the earliest I can remember. I don't think there's been a good Phoenix race since 1998. So if the race is bad, that's just Phoenix. Unfortunately, the track's it's too big and too flat. That's why the racing is bad. And I don't think they're ever going to put banking on this place. So it is what it is. But when we
Yeah.
get to Bristol, then we can judge it. Which they're going to bring the rain package to Bristol. That's exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah. I It's about time is probably
Mm-hmm.
about what I've got to say to that. Um yeah, I think that's a good thing.
Well, we'll see how that works out when we get to Bristol in a couple of weeks. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into the open wheel news. And unfortunately, IndyCar and Formula One, both of them have had very bad Februarys and Marches for two completely different reasons. We'll talk about that on the other side of this break here on the Extra Mile I Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Do, 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 do. Extra stuff.
Well, 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 what is up, Carolina Nation? This is John Felipe of the Carolina Cast, of course, the podcast of, by, and for the Carolinas, right here on IE Sports, your direct feed for all that is sports. And I'm reminding you to tune in Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern for the latest in Carolina sports, whether it's the Panthers that keep on pounding, the fly natures of the Hornets, the storming Hurricanes, the battle of the Blues with Duke and UNC, the fight of the Clemson Tigers, or the amazing atmosphere of any Carolina college. I'm talking App State, I'm talking ECU. I've got you covered. Once again, tune in for the Carolina Cast with me, John Felipe, Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we're back here in the Extra Mile of iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Daryl, Chris, Michael, I can say this for the first time. Jen with us this weekend, or with us this evening. We're going to head on into the open wheel segment. And Michael made a good point during the break as we get into the myriad of off-the-track news between IndyCar and Formula One. If you had bet me $1 million, I would not have said that NASCAR would have been the least toxic motorsport to start the year in 2024. Oh, you guys are muted. Say that one more time, Michael. So we're having technical glitches. Go ahead, Michael.
I was saying that it's kind of crazy how NASCAR, I think, is like the least toxic sport. I think it was Chris that brought up that is somehow the least toxic, but yeah, it's the least toxic because WEC, we got BOP, Formula One, we have everything.
Where do we start?
I was gonna say just all of it.
IndyCar, we have a potential manufacturer getting screwed over and pulling out, and then NASCAR is NASCAR. So pick your off the track sort of battles right now.
Well, let's start with the myriad of dramas in Formula One. We'll start with the race and then work our way down the order of the nonsense. The race was... I'll put it like this. If it wasn't for Mercedes and McLaren mixing up their cars, the top 8 would have been all 2 Red Bulls, 2 Ferraris, 2 Mercs, 2 McLarens in perfect order. If it wasn't for Logan Sargent and Valtteri Bottas having their issues, the entire field would have been in order. Perfect order with the 2 cars. That is a problem. There was not a lot of passing on Saturday. I was about to say Sunday. On Saturday in Bahrain. And the way Chris is kind of on the camera, y'all can't see him kind of laying his head back. That was how we were for like the entire race. I don't know, Chris, if you got up there to watch it, but it just felt like, you know, all the excitement for the F1 season, and Bahrain, which usually puts on great racing, was just a dud.
Yeah, I was actually just cracking my neck. But yeah, like I'm a bit biased, obviously, when it comes to Formula One races over the past couple seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So they're exciting for me. Maybe not necessarily exciting, but no, I mean it's just highly predictable, right? So I don't want to say there's not necessarily like a disappointment, but you know, we see, you know, Max just winning every race by ridiculously, and it seems like increasingly big margins. And so it does kind of make it not necessarily fun, or at least the sporting end of it. But what I will say is that Carlos Sainz is going to make this season worth watching.
Yeah, Carlos giving it to Charles is probably going to be the only thing worth watching, as those two fight with Carlos trying to prove a point on his way out the door. But, Jen, it's kind of like the Super Bowl earlier this year. Those darn Chiefs just keep winning. And in Formula One, Red Bull keeps winning. But it's even more than that. It's the other teams, they're just locked into place.
Yeah, I was watching some videos earlier today just to get a little bit more up to speed on Formula One, and one of the things I watched was a review of how the preseason testing went, and
Mm-hmm.
they were like Red Bull this, Red Bull that. I was like, all right, so Red Bull it is, and the other teams were just so far behind for the most part in almost every category.
It's an unfortunate side effect, and it's what was talked about when they instituted this budget cap, in that you're not going to have the wiggle room if your car is way off. Case in point, Alpine, which was, they would have been 19th and 20th, if it wasn't for Bottas and Sargent having issues. Which, by the way, the entire executive staff of the Alpine F1 team resigned. That was a thing. That team is in shambles. Maybe Andretti will buy them and get on the grid.
That's a hard that's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Like
reading, go ahead, and then I'll give my theory.
Well, I was actually just gonna say, like, I don't even know what lines to read between with that, because it just makes almost no sense.
What it sounded like, what it looks like to me, is there was a difference of opinion between the leadership team and Renault, who owns Alpine. That's the only thing that makes sense. And they were getting interfered with in every turn to try to improve this car. They see the crap show that it's turned into, where it's overweight, it's not aerodynamically efficient, it doesn't have the grip to get through the turns. It's just not an F1 car. And they said, you know what? We're not going to work under these conditions. We quit. And they just left. That's kind of where we are.
I would imagine this happened at Mercedes last year.
Well, it's definitely going to happen after the end of this year, too.
But instead of the engineers quitting, somebody said, you know what? Maybe we'll listen to those guys, and we'll scrap the zero pod concept.
Mm-hmm.
Only for another team to actually figure it out.
Well, I wasn't going to say that. Not another team, just a demigod.
I mean, the greatest aerodynamicist in Formula One history. Of course, he figured it out.
Man, I wish you would get bored and just leave.
Well, depending on how things go, apparently he might be going to Toyota.
Oh,
God.
We'll get to that. I mean, that man could turn a soapbox car into a Formula One winner. That's how good he is. But
that's even worse.
Yep. And then, we get done with which, by the way, Max Verstappen won the Bahrain Grand Prix. So congratulations, Max.
Max Verstappen.
I'm gonna make that a drop. It was Max, Sergio, and I believe. Hold on, let me get the actual results.
And Sainz, yeah.
So it's.
It's bad when even the F1 social media team makes jokes about the Max Verstappen cool down room podcast.
Yeah.
Like, it's bad when they make jokes about it. Like, just openly.
Yeah, you're not in a good spot. I mean, would you rather them talk about whether or not Christian Horner harassed one of his coworkers or one of his employees, or?
Yeah, actually, yes, I would like to know.
Yeah, and whether or not Ben Sulayem fixed races or attempted to fix races.
I think people try to watch motorsports.
Again, yes, I would like to know.
Yeah.
those types of things, but it's just kind of the main talking point
It's just been a
at this
horrible
point.
news cycle for Formula One. We'll start with the latest Christian news, and there's a whole lot of rumor and innuendo, so it's hard to tell what exactly is true and what exactly is nonsense. Because apparently, Adrian Newey is either going to Toyota or Ferrari if Christian gets fired. Christian allegedly tried to buy the team from under the Austrian owner's noses, which kind of started all this crap. Yas, for some reason, wants Christian gone. And in all of that, the woman that allegedly made the comments or made the claim was then suspended by Red Bull because allegedly they have found inconsistencies in the evidence. Now, I'll swing this around. We'll go to Chris, Michael, and then Jen. Because I want to make it clear with Formula One on this part. They better have lock solid evidence to suspend her, or not only is Formula One going to look bad, they're going to get a massive employment discrimination lawsuit if the evidence is actually real and they suspended her under false pretenses.
So I'm going first. So I guess I would have to think that this goes beyond just the Red Bull Formula One team, and this is representative of the Red Bull brand as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess, I would have to think that they have something pretty solid for justification. I don't think this is just a workplace retaliation. It's too public. So my guess is something happened. We're never going to know, obviously. And the only way we're going to know anything is whether she sues. If she doesn't sue, there was probably cause. If she does sue, and wins, there's probably not. But I think the only way we find out really anything that's going on in this whole saga is if it makes it to public courts where it becomes public knowledge. And I think with that, I will turn over to Michael.
I this it's kind of hard for me to say, but like this case and like all the rumors that have come from it has really been insane, honestly. And I'm like I said, I'm just kind of surprised with everything that's going on, and I think it's really the did he really or did he not that's just kind of plaguing me right now. Because at this point, I would just really like to know what he apparently did to make it this big of news, because it had to have been potentially something. Otherwise, it wouldn't have gone on this long. But at the same time, it's just, if it's just being dismissed so much. And then, it's starting to carry over into other drivers. I'm starting to hear rumors that Max is going to leave Red Bull, which I think would be insane. I don't think it's going to happen, because why would you leave a team that's giving you a car that literally destroys anything other teams throw at it? And then it's just a big mess. And it's kind of one of the things that rears its head over everything else. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, I just really want to know what the hell happened.
Yeah.
What happened?
Jen, I think that's the question we're all asking is what happened? Did it happen the way that it's been reported? Which we don't really and that's the other thing. We don't really know what was said other than some vague screenshots that got shut down really quick by Red Bull. I think what's frustrating everyone is the complete lack of transparency on this issue.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I was watching some stuff on this also, and it It's like there's news, but there's no news.
Hmm.
And it's a bad look, and especially since they suspended her, it it doesn't look good all around, especially since there is no real information available.
Hmm.
So you don't know what allegedly happened what or even why she's suspended. So it's not a good look. And like you said earlier, if it comes out that she's being suspended as like a retaliation, that is not going to go over well anywhere. We
No,
saw it just happen with your commanders.
Lord have mercy. Don't remind me. Thank God that guy's gone. Lord. But yeah, it on a serious note, Formula One has to get this right, and they haven't. They just haven't. And I think Formula One themselves need to open up an inquiry into what happened and publish the information. They need to do their own investigation and figure out what happened and put that out to the public, because this is not going to go away until you tell people what happened, why the tribunal said that Christian allegedly did not violate any rules, and why was this woman suspended. Or else this is going to keep going. And here's how you know how bad it is. The Saudi Arabian Grand Prix is on Saturday. We haven't talked a minute yet about the race. That's how bad the off-the-track news is for Formula One right now. We haven't even gotten to the FIA president.
We could touch up really quick, Daryl,
Mhm.
on just some of the team orders that happened that day. Some of the, in my opinion, some of the very outrageous team orders, in my opinion, that happened
Um,
between Aston Martin and Visha Cash App Red Bull Racing.
I don't remember what happened with Aston Martin, but I will say switching Ricardo and Tsunoda was a bad move.
It
And
was
then Tsunoda doing what he did, though, was completely unjustified at the end of the race.
right, and I don't know. I think it was way too early in a season to switch cars around like that on the track. Um, I really also think the way Sonoda kind of handled that post race, it doesn't look good for him, like at all. Like, I
It,
don't know if teams are gonna be really wanting to sign him if he's gonna be acting like that.
well, the thing is, he's got the Toyota or the Honda money, so he'll be going on. But the problem is, there's beef over there because Yuki is leaving with the Honda deal, if the Ford deal even still happens at this point. They're beefing for number one, and Yuki is one of those drivers that more than likely is racing for a job. So he's trying to prove to other teams that he can race well, and that move didn't look good with Ricardo. We know
And
Ricardo is the favorite son over there,
and I
and
think and I think because they were trying to pass Magnussen, and I
mhm,
just feel like, if you have a driver that says, "Oh, I can get past that other guy that's holding us up," and you do the swap. I think if the driver can't do it, they should swap back.
mhm.
They did not swap back. That's the problem I have.
I think if you can't get the move done, you got to swap it back.
Yeah, and they just didn't. So I'm kind of on Team Yuki on that one because I feel as though Ricardo couldn't get the move done and they didn't swap him back. And I mean, they didn't get points really, but I just think it's a bad move.
Mhm.
I just really think it's a bad move, and I hope the season doesn't continue to go on with, oh, this driver can't get through, so I'm gonna let him pass and then, not let the other guy pass. I really hope that's not a thing this year because we saw
It's
it not with one team, but with two teams.
yeah, and it's not a good look. We will touch on Ben's dilemmas next week as that grows out because we do need to get to IndyCar. Hopefully, we will have an entertaining Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, which will again be run on Saturday due to Ramadan in the Middle East. They will run that race on Saturday evening. Let's get to IndyCar, and they've got their own set of bad news. They're starting their season in St. Petersburg, the now traditional home of the start of the IndyCar season. And boys, I don't know where to and Jen, I don't know where to start between the charters that might be coming, fan outrage over the prospect of the fastest 33 no longer being a thing for IndyCar qualifying, and the fact that Honda might be quitting the sport entirely to go to NASCAR. It's been a horrific off-season for IndyCar.
Yes, it's definitely been horrific, and I just wonder what the talking points are gonna be when those guys roll into. Well, I think they're already in St. Petersburg. I just wonder if everybody's just gonna pretend that they don't have this potential looming threat over their heads. Just I just wonder if how everyone's feeling going into St. Pete because I would just kind of just be wondering like what is going to be the future of this sport right now if I was in St. Pete.
I think the talking points are the talking points are going to be, is Honda staying? We're going to hear that 57 times during the broadcast. They want this charter system in before the Indy 500. Are you going to keep fastest 33 for Indy 500 qualifying or not? I think if you don't keep it, what is the point of me watching qualifying? I'm only watching to see who the fastest 33 are going to be. And if you're going to lock in spots for all of the owners that are full season, if they bring enough cars, that's going to lock up the entire Indy 500 field. So what's the point? It's like locking all the roster spots on a football team and then starting training camp. Like, what's the point? Why are we cutting dudes? Because we already know who's going to be on the team. So it's frustrating. And IndyCar, the one thing going for them that Formula One doesn't is the St. Petersburg track has developed some really good racing, even though it's a street circuit.
Yeah, it has. It really has. Definitely one of those how you do a street circuit versus how you don't do a street circuit. Looking at you, Madrid. Um, and I actually look forward to this race. So, what about you guys? Like, do you guys look forward to this race every year? Even though it's a street circuit, it's definitely, you gotta say, it's definitely one of the better street circuits.
This is always one of the more exciting IndyCar races, and it's always like it's a good kickoff for the season. We've usually had perfect weather for the race, and that is not changing this weekend. I'm excited to get started. My question is also, is Alex Palou going to win the championship this year and also get sued again? Because he's won 2 championships. He's also been sued twice over contract nonsense. So the question is, does he win the championship and get sued? I want the Caesar Sportsbook line for that because I might put some money down on that. No, I'm not.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
I would say that he's got to be the favorite going in for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that at the very least. And then kind of kicking back to your question about just the race in general, yeah, I would think that it would be, a relatively exciting race. I think it's a good track. I think that we tend to get a little excited and have a little bit of a bias towards the first race of the season, just because, hey, racing's back and we've been on a long hiatus. We're back racing, and it's really easy to please people the first week back.
Hmm.
So I think it's gonna be a great race. It's gonna be on Peacock, which is exciting. Um, Hopefully NBC starts to actually utilize that this year because they only did like 2 races on Peacock last year, which was frustrating because I got rid
Oh,
of TV.
it's on
Um,
Peacock.
yeah.
Oh, I have another reason to continue my subscription.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, no, I'm excited about that because, like I said, they did like 2 races on Peacock last year, so I didn't like. I was kind of like
I
watching
think
them in other ways.
I think every race is going to be simulcast on Peacock this year, and then we're going to have a couple that are only going to be on Peacock.
Oh,
Race
good.
1 in Milwaukee will be on Peacock. The Honda Indy Toronto will also be a Peacock exclusive, but all the races will be on the NBC networks and Peacock, and can also be listened to on the IndyCar radio network, which includes the sultry voice of Nick Yeoman, who is awesome, and I follow him on Twitter. So it's going to be exciting. This race starts at noon because IndyCar believes in noon start times. That'll be on noon on March the 10th. You can watch that on NBC, Peacock, NBC Universo for the Spanish-speaking folks, and listen to it on Sirius XM. And Jen, in IndyCar going into this season, we have our own Tom Brady situation with Scott Dixon, 6-time champion, veteran of the sport, trying to get that 7th championship to put himself above and beyond as the greatest of all time.
Oh, gotta love the Tom Brady's of the world, right?
Hey, this one's actually likable.
Well,
I will say that.
That's good because I'm. It's so nice to not have to hate the Patriots anymore,
I know, right? Now we get to laugh at them.
right?
No one feels bad for their pain. No one.
No, no, no. They've earned it.
It's
They
just
have
like how.
earned it for sure.
Yep. No one feels bad for Mercedes' pain in Formula One. No one definitely feels bad for Toyota in WEC. They finished 5th and 10th
I
on
feel
Saturday.
I feel bad for Peugeot.
Oh, don't remind me. We got to go nearest the win after this. But yeah, Peugeot was second in the 1812 kilometer of Bahrain. Why did they not make that a round number? The Peugeot was running second on the last lap, ran out of gas. Porsche swept the podium because of it, but Lord have mercy. Also, we can end the rumors that the LMDH cars are being intentionally held back for the hypercars because the LMDH cars ran up front for most of the day in the WEC race. But we're not going to take a break. We're going to go over to nearest the win before we close out the show. First triple header weekend of the season. Chris, who'd everybody pick?
I was just working on getting the list written out. So when I get to IndyCar, excuse me, because I'm gonna have to switch spreadsheets. So we'll start off with Phoenix. So Daryl is taking William Byron. I am taking Kyle Larson. Michael Ward is taking Tyler Reddick. My wife Stephanie is taking Kyle Larson. Matt White is taking William Byron. Marshall Young is taking Noah Gregson. Taryn Rodriguez is taking Ryan Blaney. I'm going to check one last time because Miriam's name is next and she has not submitted yet. So we'll skip her.
She'll probably have
Jennifer.
hers in. She'll have hers in tomorrow.
Okay. Jennifer is taking William Byron. Ricky Keeler is taking Tyler Reddick, and Corey Heffron is taking William Byron. So 2, 3, 4 Byrons.
Apologize to all the William Byron fans for whatever crap is going to befall him in the early part of this race because
actually 2 Tyler Reddicks.
The extra mile jinx is now fully in session.
There's only one person immune to the extra mile jinx.
Max Verstappen.
Yeah. All right. So next we'll go to Formula One, the Saudi Arabian GP. Daryl is taking Max. I'm My strategy is I'm just getting all my duds out of the way early. So I'm taking Alex Albon. Michael Ward is taking K-Mag. My wife Stephanie is taking Carlos. Matt White is taking Max. Marshall Young is taking Carlos. Taryn Rodriguez is taking Lewis Hamilton. Jennifer and Ricky Keeler are taking Fernando Alonso. And then Corey Heffron is taking Max. And then I got to switch over. So for St. Pete's IndyCar, Daryl is taking Alex Palou. I am taking Scott McLaughlin. Michael is taking Alex Palou. Stephanie is taking Scott Dixon. Matt White is taking Alex Palou.
Oh,
Marshall
no.
Young is taking Scott McLaughlin. Taryn Rodriguez is taking Alex Palou.
Oh, no.
Jennifer Bryant is taking Scott McLaughlin. Ricky Keeler is taking Scott Dixon. And Corey Heffron is taking Joseph Newgarden. So a lot of Alex Palous there.
I apologize to Alex Palou fans for the extra mile jinx that will befall them.
And then we did a no risk pick this week on which IndyCar engine manufacturer would pick up the win. Obviously, you got a 50-50 shot theoretically because your choices are Honda or Chevy. So just running down this quick list: Daryl's Honda, I'm Chevy, Michael's Chevy, Stephanie's Chevy, Matt White's Honda, Marshall's Honda, Taryn's Chevy, Jennifer's Chevy, Ricky is Honda, and Corey is Chevy. So actually a pretty good split here. 4 Hondas and 6 Chevys. So
it'll be fun to see. Can't wait to get the season started. Jen, it was great to have you here on the show. Can't wait to have you back next week or whenever you are able to come on. It's been a lot of fun, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So, Jen, where can they find you on social media, and tell them a little bit about the Show of the Land?
The Show of the Land is live on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, and you can follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Show of the Land IE. And my personal account is Believe Land Girl. And I am also on Instagram and Threads, also at Believe Land Girl, and TikTok at jen.believeland.
And I can be followed at DKJunior12 on Twitter. Chris is at Fiji Sims. Michael's at Michael_War25. Make sure you also follow the Extra Mile IE Sports Radio on Twitter. Make sure to follow our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for IE Sports Radio. Also, make sure to go over to www.iesportsradio.com, pick you up some delicious beef jerky, some show merch, learn about all of the shows and listen to them as well, learn more about our hosts, see the Hall of Fame selections, and more on iesportsradio.com. And remember, if you missed any live episode of any of your favorite iSports Radio shows, they can be heard wherever you get your podcast, and the YouTube repository, which has a copy of every show we've ever done. So that'll wrap it up for this edition of the Extra Mile. For Jen, Michael, and Chris, I'm Daryl. Thank you so much for listening this weekend, and we will see you at the next green flag. Good night, everybody.